Welcome back. Panelists here, Eddie Glaude Jr. of Princeton University, Wall Street Journal columnist Peggy Noonan, NBC News White House correspondent Kristen Welker, and former White House press secretary Robert Gibbs. Welcome, sir. Been a long time with you, Mr. Gibbs.
Thank you.
We got a couple Super Tuesday polls. I'm going to throw it out there. We're looking ahead. Super Tuesday. We got North Carolina and Texas. Probably as good of bellwethers as you can have on the future of both Sanders and Biden here. In North Carolina, it's Sanders with a 2-point lead. Basically margin of error. Look at the Bloomberg number, though. So add up Bloomberg and Biden. That's an interesting number there. Among African Americans here, this was done before South Carolina, obviously, in the middle of the debate. So only 36% right now there for Biden. That number could grow, shows you growth potential there. Let's look at Texas. Bernie Sanders, a bigger lead here, double-digit lead, thanks mostly to the Latino support that Sanders is getting here. 46%. And this is what's interesting here, Eddie Glaude Jr., is that we may be seeing the Democratic Party basically split right in half with two different coalitions. Bernie Sanders leading a liberal Latino coalition, Joe Biden leading a moderate African-American coalition.
Yeah, that is so fascinating for me, mind-blowing, actually. And in some ways, I would have never imagined, although I understand the data, that African-Americans would in some ways be the firewall for the moderate wing of the Democratic Party. To me, that is just stunning news. But let's be clear. I think we're in the South. South Carolina is a unique space. So to think about the African-American vote as kind of monolithic in that way, I think we need to be careful there, particularly as we move out of a particular side of the South. Yeah. But let's be clear here, too. Latino voters, that time bomb that everyone thought was about to explode has exploded. We're going to see them having an impact on election cycles.
The West versus the South.
Exactly.
And it's going to clash right in Texas, Peggy.
Woo.
Yeah.
It's interesting, to say the least. I also thought the truest words Joe Biden said when he made his victory speech last night were to Jim Clyburn, when he said essentially, "Thank you for saving me." He did. And not only
Clyburn didn't just say you're welcome, he also said, and I've got some things to say.
No, it's very clear.
Yeah.
So not only, as Eddie says, did we see a firewall saving a moderate Democrat, but we saw, I think, a leader is the wrong word, but there's a sense in America sometimes that establishments and authorities are losing their clout. But Jim Clyburn came forward the other day and he said, "I'm going to tell you what I want you to do." And people listened, considered, and did it. We saw in the exit polls, half the people leaving said, "I listened."
It mattered.
It's kind of touching in a way.
And more than half the people said that they wanted to keep Obama's policies intact. So at least in some places, this is still Obama's Democratic Party. The question is, does that hold in North Carolina? And what, if any, bounce is Biden going to get in places like North Carolina and Texas? But, of course, the unknown also is early voting. You have folks who've already gone out and cast their ballots before South Carolina
Texas
waited.
and California, the two biggest ones there.
Yeah.
All right, Robert, is Biden dealt himself back? He wants to say this is a two-person race. I think he could sweep the South. I mean, it's possible North Carolina will be the toughest one.
Well, I think you look at the numbers you just showed, and you've got Bloomberg at 15%, right at that viability line. And so does last night's win and that momentum push a couple of points up for Vice President Biden and push Bloomberg down a couple of points? And so do you force that one-on-one contest through viability? I think Joe Biden's strategy has to be to survive the big states of California and Texas and wake up Wednesday morning as the sole competitor to Bernie Sanders.
Can we flip the script here and talk about Bernie?
Yeah.
You know, Eddie, the Bernie South Carolina result has to be really disappointing to Sanders. They did put some effort into here. It looks like they've made no progress to win over African-American voters from 4 years ago. It doesn't look like they made much.
Right. Look, we can't underestimate Clyburn's endorsement in South Carolina. That's the first thing. But the second thing is that I believe that South Carolina provided the best litmus test for the Sanders claim that they were going to expand the electorate.
Yeah.
It's a Saturday vote.
No excuse yet.
So it's a Saturday vote. Yeah. They've been on the ground. So what I was looking for was to see how young African Americans voted, how young college students voted. I wanted to see the numbers.
He didn't win young African Americans.
Exactly. So, again, we might have to kind of attribute it to the uniqueness of the South Carolina electorate, but Sanders and his campaign, they have to be concerned. I was not expecting this margin. I said explicitly, it's not going to be 15, 16%. They're just,
You're right, it wasn't 15 or 16%.
Right, you got his behind mandatory.
It was more than that.
So we have to really test the claim.
Yeah.
Will the Sanders campaign actually make good on his claim that they're going to expand the electorate?
Peggy, I want to put up two pieces of writing. You're the best writer here. Two pieces of writing, I want you to react to it. One is sort of making the anti-Sanders argument. One makes the pro-Sanders argument. Here's The Economist. If Mr. Sanders becomes the Democratic nominee, America will have to choose in November between a corrupt, divisive right-wing populist who scorns the rule of law and the Constitution and a sanctimonious, divisive left-wing populist who blames a cabal of billionaires and business for everything that is wrong with the world. Wake up, America. These are the Brits telling us at The Economist. Now, here's Jamel Bouie in the New York Times. At the end of the day, Sanders is the only candidate who can plausibly unite the anti-Trump majority of the electorate. With his forceful attacks on corruption and bigotry, he can speak directly to the concerns about Trump's character and personality that have alienated moderate suburban whites and helped give Democrats the House of Representatives. Both of these things rang true to me. I'll be honest with you. In a weird way, both rang true to me.
Yeah, well, look, we're in an unprecedented time. A great political party, the Democratic Party, feels that it is making some fateful decisions here between, are we going to acknowledge that we are interested in a socialist or social democrat future? Are we going to stay kind of where we have been for the past 20 or 30 years? It's a big decision. It does have to do with left and right and with interesting coalitions. It is interesting to look at Bernie. However, I saw his speech last night after Biden won. Bernie does not do happy warrior.
Yeah.
Do you know, he doesn't come forward and says, we're going to fight, we're going to do all that stuff. I mentioned this to a young journalist. I said, he doesn't do happy warrior. He said, boomers like happy warriors. He's not going for boomers.
I was just going to say, and this is, I think, the Barack Obama issue with Sanders, is that he doesn't like the tone, even though he's impressed with the movement. Is that a fair?
That's a good question. I mean, look, and you always see Bernie describe it as a movement. I think one of the things that was written there, though, and I think when we peel back some of the results in South Carolina, there's a big suburban vote yesterday, particularly in the Charleston area. And what does that mean going forward? Is South Carolina unique? Is it because of the relationship that it has with Vice President Biden? Or does it tell us something going forward? It'll be interesting to see. I don't know that we'll know for a while.
Turnout. It was good, not great.
Good, not great. It was better than 2016, not as strong as 2008. I did talk to Democrats, though, who said, look, they are encouraged by the turnout. Big question, though, for candidates like Buttigieg. What's the path? He couldn't name one state, Chuck, on Super Tuesday that he thinks he's going to win or even
If I had more time,
in.
I was going to ask specific congressional districts
Right.
as well. But they're not naming any of those either.
Not naming names.
All right. Hello from Washington. I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.